And John, now to the quarterback who ended up in a trauma center and the team under fire for even letting him play in the first place.
The Miami Dolphins taking heat for putting Tua Tagovailoa on the field just 4 days after slamming his head on the turf in their previous game against the Buffalo Bills. Then this happened. You can see, after getting slammed to the ground for his second time in the Bengals game, he ended up on a stretcher before being taken out of the stadium and to the hospital.
Everybody's talking about this. Let's bring in Jack Brewer now, former NFL player and CEO of the Jack Brewer Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us, Jack. Just heartbreaking to see that video. So many wondering why this player was put back out in the field in the first place. But you've lived through this firsthand, and you've seen so many of your teammates suffer. Why are we not in a place where we know more about concussions and protecting players more from re-injury?
I think it's a willingness. I don't know what's going on in the National Football League, and particularly individual teams. I don't want to blame the entire league for this, but the Miami Dolphins staff and whoever is over their protocols should be disgusted right now. I mean, to put a man through this. And, you know, really what it shows you as well is we're watching the quarterback. So this is the face of the franchise. But you don't see the dozens and dozens of men who have these type of injuries every day at practice, at games, who they're putting back on the field that don't get this type of attention. You see, the majority of concussions we never see from the screen. And so if you're going to be able to do something like this and make these type of healthcare decisions for these players and not take into account truly their future, then you need to pay a price for that. Because when you're playing in the National Football League, the mentality of the player is never going to take himself off the football field. That is the job of the training staff. You can't make it to the level of the National Football League if you're a player that's going to say, oh, I'm feeling bad now, I'm in pain, I'm going to come off the field. That's not what happens. In the NFL, the doctors must control and have the last say when it comes to player safety and who plays and who sits on the bench.
Yeah. You know, Jack, we're just seeing there, here's the game against the Bills on September the 25th. And Tua goes down really, really hard there, hits the back of his head. Oh. And then 4 days later, after an investigation was undertaken, there you see him. It was almost a late hit there, too. Then he goes down in the game against the Bengals, and he gets whipped around in the tackle and slams his head again. Bam, right there. It really looked like he was whipped. And look at his fingers here. The way that they're twisted like that, that's a hallmark of a concussion.
That's right. And I mean, the impact of this, he won't even know, I mean, for years to see the depth of this. You know, the head is something that is just now recently being exposed and understood in the last decade or so. I know during my playing days, we got concussions all the time. They put smelling salt and put you back on the field. But now we know so much more. And so this is just reckless. And for them to continue to do it, again, we see this incident, but we don't see the thousands and thousands of other collisions in pro football, college football, high school football. Hey, it's a violent game. I played it, and if I was him, I would have wanted to go back out there and play as well. But you need those authority figures, those medical doctors who have the authority and the God-given authority to sit these guys on the sideline and put the dollars behind us. Stop worrying about making the money. Stop worrying about just winning the championships and start actually caring about these guys. You see guys committing suicide. I just lost one of my good friends a few months back at 38 years old and just suffering from head trauma. Could barely get him help from the National Football League. We got to do better than this. We're humans in the United States of America, and this is America's sport.
And especially considering we know so much about these head injuries, we know so much about concussions. We know that you really never, ever fully heal from one. The goal is always just to not re-injure, especially in the days and weeks that follows a previous injury. You just hope that this sheds a lot of light on this, on this, and that change is eventually made, and these people are protected. This is brutal. Hard to watch that video.
It is. It makes you cringe. I mean, when you put it on, it's hard for me to watch. And believe me, I was a guy that would run down the field and bust a wedge. I was a special teams guru that would hit you right in the mouth. But guys like me need to be tamed. We need to be told when it's time for us to play or not by the medical team and the medical staff. And so the National Football League has answers for this. I think the fans are disgusted by it, and hopefully the sponsors hold them accountable as well. We need governing bodies to start talking about this, because the way that these guys are being treated right now is just not right. And I'm glad that you guys are putting so much attention on it and shedding this light. I mean, think about it. Our wounds can't heal in 4 days. What makes you think head trauma, something that shakes and rattles your head, is going to be able to heal in 4 days when you're going back out there in a position where their job is to sack you? I mean, it's ridiculous.
And they do have these unaffiliated neurotrauma consultants on the sidelines there, and Tua was looked at by one after the hit from the Bills. The Players Association fired that doctor afterwards, saying failure to understand his role as the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant in hostility during the investigation process. And then yesterday, at least 12 players were removed from games because of the concussion protocol. So, I mean, at least, Jack, it looks like they're taking notice in the interim, but we've heard about this for so many years now, and it's still going on. Jack, great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
$1.5 billion lawsuit, and they're still doing it. They'll do it when the limelight's on them, but in a month when no one's watching anymore, they'll start back to their old antics. It's ridiculous. God bless you guys.
Jack, thank you.
Thanks, Jack.